Now, I'm sure if you've clicked on this video, you are most likely familiar with the Wildfire virus from the TV series The Walking Dead. And this fictional virus is highly contagious and reanimates the corpses of its human hosts into flesh-eating monsters known as walkers. And in the show, civilization is totally destroyed by the virus in just 16 days. But today, I wanted to explore how the real world would fare if this fictional virus really did become real. Would we cope better than we saw in the TV series, or would we maybe even fare even worse? Well, sit back and relax as we explore if we would survive the Wildfire virus. Now, one huge advantage we would have over the human race in the series of The Walking Dead is the very knowledge of zombie media. Robert Kirkman, the creator of both the comics and the show, has confirmed to us that in the world of The Walking Dead, zombies flat out don't exist. At least before the Wildfire virus started turning everybody into them, they have no prior knowledge. There aren't films or games cluing people into the existence of zombies. I mean, in the actual show, the word zombie is never used, and this was deliberately intended by the writers to demonstrate this very fact. However, there is a small slip up in season 3 of Fear the Walking Dead where the word zombie is mentioned, but that was obviously a writing mistake. My point is, in our world, people know what a zombie is. I mean, people dress up as them for Halloween. I've played enough COD to be familiar with how they work, and the general rule across zombie media is that if you damage the brain, you kill the zombie, and that's the only way they can generally be put down. And that logic rings no difference to the zombies from the Walking Dead universe. So whilst in the series we saw during many outbreak scenes the military aiming for their chests, which is where soldiers are taught to aim in military training, in the real world this just wouldn't happen, as the military would know better. We know from our knowledge that they have to aim for their heads, and this would also of course mean the average civilian would stand a better chance of survival. So, we know what a zombie is, already giving us a huge advantage to the human race in the Walking Dead series, but much like them, we wouldn't understand anything about the actual virus itself, albeit, once again thanks to zombie media, we would rightfully assume bites and scratches transmit the virus, but we would have no idea about the facts, such as everybody on the planet being infected or that there is no cure. So, whilst our knowledge of zombies would help us to fight the problem, it wouldn't help us to totally eradicate it. Which leads nicely into my next point. So in the world of The Walking Dead, as I mentioned, the military fell in just 16 days. And of course, with the show being a dramatised study on human behaviour in the environment of an apocalypse, the military never stood a chance because the story needs them to fail in order to progress. But realistically, I am certain the military would not fall, at least in this time period. Firstly, the Wildfire virus itself struck the world of The Walking Dead in 2010, and for this specific scenario, we are assuming the virus escapes fiction as of today, meaning we are now 15 years into the future, meaning we have 15 years of advancement and new technology over our counterparts in 2010. And in this specific time frame, we have entered a new period of military advancements. Inventions such as the Shahad drone released in 2013 now rule current day battlefields. These drones are unmanned, high-powered weapons of destruction that blow up on command. And a weapon like this against a horde of zombies would be devastating to our undead friends. Add to this things we didn't even see utilised nearly enough in the actual show, like tanks and helicopters, and I'm certain we could hold off the fall of civilization for longer than 16 days. However, I still believe humanity would be a ticking time bomb, and to understand why, we must first learn about the actual Wildfire virus itself. Now, the Wildfire virus is so deadly because everybody on the planet is infected, and there is no escaping it. The airborne pathogen is within us all, and upon death, the entire 8.142 billion people on planet Earth will eventually become a zombie. Now, how the virus actually works is it sits inside its host laying dormant until an individual dies. It then reactivates the brain of its host and causes them to become a flesh-hungry monster. To pass on the secondary infection, reanimated corpses will hunt down, bite and scratch other living people. This will then infect them with a nasty like flu that has an 100% fatality rate, killing infected individuals within 48 hours. If bitten or scratched, the only way to stop a secondary infection is to immediately amputate the part of your body that was bitten or scratched. And it doesn't matter how you die, but when you do, you will become a zombie. And the only way to kill a zombie in the world of The Walking Dead is to directly destroy the brain. There is no cure, no immunity, or containment. The wildfire virus is inevitable, much like Thanos's, and there is no escaping it. So why exactly am I so adamant that the military across all countries would eventually fall? And it comes down to a few factors. Firstly, the sheer number of the dead. Approximately 150,000 people die every single day worldwide, so that is a minimum of 150,000 zombies for the military to kill each day. But they don't just spawn in one specific location and line up waiting to be shot. They are spread few and far between. They are elderly people who could die at their home and infect a sleeping family. They are hospital patients who could infect an entire ward, or a freak public accident that happens out of the blue but infects tens of, if not hundreds of civilians. These deaths would add up every single day. We'd lose more and more people who would only accelerate the spread of the virus. On top of this, people would stop going to their jobs, they'd stop leaving their house in fear of what would happen. Society would totally collapse. Employees at nursing homes would stop showing up due to the high risk of death and infection. Hospitals would become a hotspot for attacks and likely quickly get overrun, meaning things like home births with no medical assistance from pregnant women would now skyrocket. And the death rate for a free birth alone is around 3%. Now, for some quick context, there are over 400,000 births each day across the planet. That means 12,000 of those women each day would now die and become zombies. My point is that the world would totally crumble, and no matter how advanced our technology is or how organised and prepared the military are, there is no winning against an enemy that never tires. They never sleep, they have no emotions, and are doubling in size by the day. The fall of humanity would be a certain. And whilst I think 16 days probably is far too quick, I'm going to use some maths to work out how long I reckon it would take the world to fall. So with 150,000 deaths across the globe each day, that would mean there is a minimum of 150,000 new walkers every single day. Now, let's assume each walker infects just 2 people, because whilst yes, some might get killed before infecting a single person, others might infect 10 or maybe even 20 people. So for argument's sake, we are going to say it averages out at a modest 2 infections per walker. That means there would be 450,000 walkers by just day 2 of the outbreak, 1.35 million by day 3, and by day 4 that number would be all the way up to 4.1 million. Now, a long story short, by day 16 you'd get a higher number than the calculator can even come up with. But look, I appreciate things like lockdowns, safe zones and military actions would serve as strongholds, which is why I do truthfully believe we'd cling on longer than humanity in The Walking Dead. But a common scenario I often see in my comments section is people saying it would be easy to survive. And whilst yes, it is by far one of the easiest apocalypses in fiction to survive, I still don't think we'd be able to do it. Did a certain pandemic in 2020, which I can't mention for monetization issues, not prove to absolutely everybody how bad the human race as a collective is in a crisis? People raiding, bulk buying, ignoring government rules. I mean, heck, the very people that made the rules in the UK about lockdown were throwing parties behind closed doors, whilst not letting the average citizen leave their house. We as a collective do not work well under pressure. And in this hypothetical scenario, the virus we're dealing with is thousands of times worse than the one we struggled to deal with in 2020. So whilst yes, I am certain that many people really could handle their own against a few walkers, it would be the decision from the higher ups to bomb and burn parts of countries in order to contain the virus that would get many of us killed. and the state the world is currently in, does that not prove to you that there are certain world leaders who would view the end of the world as an opportunity? Whilst other countries' militaries are occupied and their backs are turned, I'm sure they would use this to invade or take over parts of different countries. Now, I'm not delving into politics or foreign relations on this channel, but historically humans are power-hungry opportunists, and the setting of an apocalypse would present some very unique opportunities to some very deluded people, and I truly believe history would start to repeat itself. Look, it would take time, but humanity would eventually fall, and this is my prediction. I reckon around day 3 of the outbreak, society as we know it would be over. There would be no travel, there would be strict lockdown rules, and we'd be under martial law. People wouldn't work anymore, military would control everything, and that would result in them being able to contain the virus for a period of time. Around day 20, I reckon we would be clinging on. But at this time, death would start to pile up, and because yes, soldiers aren't just robots, we'd start to see worldwide military desertion. Fleeing to spend time with loved ones, scared from the horrors of watching humans devour others, and the lack of food, water and sleep, I think would cause immense fatigue amongst military forces. By day 21 to around day 30, there would just be widespread chaos. Many soldiers have deserted their posts, and only a select few military zones would still be functional. Supply chains would start to break, and people are starting to run out of supplies that they have at home. I think by day 40, the sheer number of the dead would overwhelm many built-up areas, and higher-ups in the chain of command would either flee to secluded residence, abandoning the masses, or make decisions such as napalm and attempt to contain the spread of the virus, or they might even stay valiantly and go down with the ship. But by day 50, I think the world as we knew it would be gone. 7 weeks. That is how long I think we'd survive. And of course, humans would survive, much like in the show, long past this date. We are an incredibly versatile and resilient race. As history has taught us, small communities would live long into the apocalypse and some might even thrive in it. But society, as we know it today, would be dead. There is no doubt in my mind. But not because of combat failure or terrible decisions, but because how the virus works and the fact death itself is uncontainable. The virus's very premise is thriving off the one thing that no creature on this planet has ever been able to avoid. That, of course, being death. And whilst tanks, helicopters and drones would be incredibly effective at killing thousands, if not tens of thousands of zombies, they are all operated by one thing, that being people. People who need to eat, sleep, drink, be with their family, time off, experience PTSD. These are all very real factors, so whilst it's easy to say, oh, they're just slow, lethargic, moving zombies, I really do think they would rather quickly, in the span of only a few months, end the world as we know it. In The Walking Dead, the military and the average survivor are portrayed to be pretty useless, and whilst I definitely think both normal people and the militaries would be far more competent than portrayed on the series, I still think society as a whole would be a ticking time bomb. Because yes, we have new technology, the understanding of what a zombie is and how one functions thanks to zombie media, and humans as a whole are more competent than made out on screen, I still think we'd be doomed because the way the virus works, and there are so many factors that go into survival. Food, access to clean water, the flat out luck of not becoming ill or dying, raids, bombs, huge hordes of the dead, and probably the scariest one of them all, other people. I think a pandemic like this really would bring out the worst in a sizable portion of our population. I mean, I am absolutely certain that if an apocalypse did happen this very day, a fair number of people across the planet would pick up a baseball bat and convince themselves that they are a prime Negan Smith.
Dun, dun, dun.
Much like how in the actual series, the early days of the apocalypse focus so heavily on the walkers and the threat that they bring, but once our survivors start to adapt and become more comfortable living in this world, they come to find that the other survivors, rather than the dead themselves, are what really pose a threat. This is more than just a question of can you kill some bumbling walkers, it's post-apocalyptic survival, something I believe many severely underestimate. So whilst yes, I believe we might be able to survive 3, maybe even 4 times longer than humanity on the show, I still think our fall would be inevitable. And like I previously mentioned, we are a resilient race. Pockets of survivors, maybe even cities that survived the initial fall, would exist and be dotted around the planet, but humanity as we know it would be gone. And I think no matter how advanced our technology is and how incompetent the walkers are, it's the way the virus fundamentally works that would be the orchestrator for our downfall. Add this to the fact of riots, widespread panic, savage humans, lack of supplies, failure in the chain of command, and opportunistic world leaders. And I think an event like the wildfire virus would flat out end humanity as we know it. But let me know down below in the comments what you guys think. Do you think we could survive longer than my 7-week estimation, or do you think we might not even last that long in the first place? I'd love to hear what all of your opinions are down below. But with that being said, if you did enjoy today's video, please do like and subscribe as it helps out the channel massively, and we are quickly closing in on 30,000 subscribers, which just feels surreal to say. But once again, a huge thank you for watching today's video, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.